Hello survivors, and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. And in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Regina, who is going to be coming to the game as an ultra token will character. Now, we have had a Regina in the game before, way back when. If you remember, she was a League Store character who I think she was one of the first characters that had maim, or like a heavy hitting maim, where it was just pure maim damage. She was also a decap, if you remember that character. Visually, she looks quite a little bit different now. She's got the hat on and stuff. On the right hand side you can see she is holding a pistol, but no attached weapon by the looks of things. We will look into that a little bit later on in the video. On the left hand side we can see her giving a little bit of a kind of speech, and we've got a character on the right hand side. Who is that? Who's that character there? I'm not really sure who that is. But we have obviously got a new character. This also means I think Regina's husband could come into the game, who was one of my favorite characters. I actually can't remember his name, but he could come into the game, which is actually kind of cool. Level 1440 limit break 3. She has got 10,533 attack, 35,110 defense, and 42,132 HP. She is going to be an alert character, of course, holding that pistol. She's going to be of the control role, Gold Mythic, of course, and she's going to be joining the Alexandria Allegiance. So the first thing we're going to look at is going to be Regina's Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Protective Rhetoric. It has got a recharge rate of 55 AP, heal all teammates for 35% in max HP, but it also does plus 15% heal and a 2-turn duration for a tank and medic role teammate, and also it will taunt a line of enemies for 2 turns. Those enemies get minus 15% attack for each medic and tank role teammate for 2 turns. So obviously 2 parts to this Adrenaline Rush. The first half is going to be the heal. Everybody will get a 35% max hit HP heal, which is obviously pretty decent, but if they are a tank role or a medic role, they will get a 50% heal for 2 turns. Generally speaking, there should be tank or medic roles on a lot of defense teams. You can actually team Regina up with those characters on purpose if you want to take full advantage of this. It isn't just the heal this is going to be a benefit for, it's also going to be a benefit for the second half, which is a taunt and the attack down. Now, it does seem like the attack down potentially won't happen at all unless there is a medic or a tank role character in the team, because it says those enemies will get minus 15% attack for each medic and tank role, not as extra 15% for each medic and tank role. We can maybe test that out, but I'm assuming it's going to be for each medic and tank. It'll add 15%, so if you have 2 medics and 1 tank, it will be minus 45% attack to those enemies. If you had no medics and no tanks, it'll probably be 0% attack down. It will just be no attack down, and it'll just be a taunt instead. Now, an easy way to show you this would be on an attack team, because this will work on attack. I don't think that Regina is going to be an attack character in any way, but it is just so I can show you how this is going to work. We have 1 tank character on this team, and it is going to be Lucky Wayland. So when I do the taunt to the bottom line, if it is just minus 15% attack, then it has to have a tank or a medic in the team. However, if it is 30%, it'll be 15% off of base, and then it'll get tiered up by 15% for the extras as well. The heal will also come in. Lucky Wayland should get a 50% heal for 2 turns. We can see that on only the second turn, because obviously the first turn is going to be the instant heal. And as you can see, he has next turn a 50% heal, which is going to take place, as you can see, on the buff when it comes around eventually. On the taunted characters, you can see they have obviously had an increase of minus 15% attack down. If I did not have the tank character in Lucky Wayland, it would not do attack down to the enemy. The main thing here is the taunt. The attack down is just going to protect Regina against those attacks that she would take damage on. So if you did obviously have a damage dealer taunted, they could potentially have minus 30, minus 45, maybe even up to minus 60% damage reduction, and this would obviously be very nice for Regina's survivability. Now, that's the best you can have. Regina herself is not a tank or a medic, so it can never go higher than 60% when you're facing her on a defense team. Now, if we look at the upgrades on the Adrenaline Rush, you can see at grade 3 it gets an upgrade where there is a taunt to a line. So initially it isn't going to do any taunt, but grade 3 is only 1 copy, so not too hard to come by. At grade 5, which is 2 copies, it gets an upgrade where the attack down for each medic and tank teammate comes in. Like I said, this is only going to work if you have medic and tank teammates, but on defense teams, you generally should have at least one medic or tank teammate. If you've got a full team of control and support characters, and even damage roll characters, maybe not the best defense team for Regina. If we look at the Limit Break 2 upgrade where we need 4 copies, it will get an upgrade where it gets plus 50% heal for 2 turn duration for those tank and medic role teammates. So they'll get initially a 50% heal, and then the next turn they'll also get a 50% top up as well. This is just a nice little bonus. I see this Adrenaline Rush as being quite nice in terms of just a little bit of a heal, medics and tanks getting a little bit of a bonus, and some control in there as well. The damage, reduction on the control is good, and that means that obviously, even if for whatever reason someone couldn't get taunted, for instance, they had focus and they tried to utilize attack while taunted, they would obviously have up to potentially minus 60% attack. So they're not really going to do much with that extra bonus there. So that's actually a pretty good equalizer. I would say you want to team up Regina with at least 2 medics and tanks just to take full advantage of this Adrenaline Rush. As it stands, this is the only part of her kit that I know of that actually requires medics and tanks, so you can ignore it if you want, but you might as well take the bonus where you can. And also don't forget, like I said, defense team characters, tanks and medics are very viable, and there's some very good ones out there. But that's the upgrades on the Adrenaline Rush, and it does look okay. Generally, Adrenaline Rushes on defense teams are pretty kind of standard. It's more about the signature move and of course the passives, but if this Adrenaline Rush does go off, it will be useful for your defense team. Now the next part of Regina's kit we're going to look at is going to be her signature move, and it is called Helping Hand. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. Deal 30% of this fighter's current HP plus 20% for each control role enemy as damage to a line of enemies. This fighter and all adjacent teammates get a Guardian Shield. If on the team, heal Alexandria Spencer for 25% of his max HP for the rest of combat. So breaking down the 3 parts of this signature move, the damage is going to be interesting. I have said I think they're going to release some counters to control role characters in the future, and it looks like potentially Regina's going to be that character as things stand with her signature move. She's going to do more overall damage the more obviously control role characters you have in your team. And there are a lot of control role characters out there that do a lot of damage right now. You've got Eva and Ghost and Danny being the primary damage dealers in the game pretty much right now, and they are both of the control role. So this is going to enhance her signature move if you use control role characters against her. It will still be pretty decent. You're probably going to be able to get her up to 100,000 HP without too much of a problem. So no matter what, she should do around about 30% of her current HP. Don't forget, it can be reduced, but of her current HP, and it can just be boosted with each control role fighter on the enemy team. The Guardian Shields are just nice. Obviously, increases survivability. Guardian Shields are hard to remove because you actually have to do damage to that character in some sort of way, be it AoE damage or targeted damage. And if you do targeted damage, you're not going to gain AP in that scenario, which is not great. Sometimes you have to use signature move to remove Guardian Shields. It's not fun. And then the last part is interesting because we haven't seen what Alexandria Spencer is, and I guess he's that character that's next to Regina in her picture, because that's how they kind of do it with like Aaron and Eric and so on and so forth. But if on the team, she'll heal that character for 25% of his max HP for the rest of combat, and this stacks. So every time this goes off, he'll add another 25% heal for the rest of combat. And maybe we'll have to wait and see. I will be previewing Alexandria Spencer reasonably soon, and you should maybe see that maybe those heals are going to be beneficial, if nothing else than just to heal him up, but also potentially for how his kit works. And as this is a 3-part signature move, if you don't use Alexandria Spencer on the team, it's not the end of the world, because it is still pretty decent on the first and second part when it comes to the damage and those Guardian Shields. So here we are again. This time we are still on an attack team. We're going to use the signature move, and you can see that Regina's base HP with no HP modifiers at all. Her weapon is not giving her any HP boost. It's 42,000 like we saw in the preview. So 30% of that should be around about, 12,000, 13,000, somewhere along those lines. But because we have one control role character on the enemy team, I think Wang Fire is a control role character, that should be boosted up to 50%, which is easy to see. It should just be 21,000 and like, what, 66. If we do the signature move, the damage we're going to do is 21,066. It's pretty much as simple as that. Now, obviously, on a defense team, she's going to have more HP. So she's going to be doing more damage because of that. Off of her first turn, that's generally the time she's going to have the higher actual current HP. But if you have any heal over times or anything like that on her, or maybe if she gets taken out and she's got like an 80% halo, she'll be able to do a signature move straight away with 80% current HP. That's pretty much how that's going to work. Now, you might have noticed that the only characters that got a Guardian Shield were Regina and Negan in that little test, and it's because she only gives Guardian Shields to adjacent teammates, but she is a defense leader, so she should generally be in that leader slot, and that would mean that she would give Guardian Shields to everyone on a defense team more often than not. I don't think she's going to be a character that people are going to use outside of the leader slot, generally speaking. If we look at her upgrades though on this signature move, you can see at grade 2 it gets an upgrade where it gets plus 20% damage for each control role enemy. That's going to be a grade 2 1 copy, nice and easy. We're also going to get a nice upgrade at grade 4, -1 to starting cooldown. This means you can use it off of turn 1 very early on in the fight, and that is going to be quite nice as well. Normally you get the -1 to starting cooldowns quite late on, Limit Break 3 generally speaking. Limit Break 1, which is going to be 3 copies, it gets an upgrade where this fighter and all adjacent teammates get a Guardian Shield. This is obviously very nice. Guardian Shields are very problematic to deal with. If there is a CRW in the future where there is a tower that gives Guardian Shields at the beginning of the fight as well, she could potentially replenish any Guardian Shields that are lost, which is going to be nice. And she also is going to work quite nicely with certain characters like Heath. When he gets a Guardian Shield, it can potentially proc parts of his kit. Any characters that come out that are basically going to be Sentinel role characters can have that happen, which is obviously going to be useful. Then at Limit Break 3, it gets plus 10% damage, and that's going to be on the initial damage it's going to do. It's going to go from 20% initial damage based on her current HP up to 30% of her current HP as damage to an enemy. So this signature move obviously is quite nice. It's going to punish you for using control role enemies. I think a lot of people will look at this and say, well, that's not too much of a problem because she still has to have a turn. There are other parts of her kit which are also going to punish control role enemies. This character is pretty much set out to be that control role character kind of counter. And this is just one of the other things that she's going to do to actually counter control role enemies. So the signature move, like I say, is pretty good. Also, the starting cooldown being reduced down to first turn at grade 4 could potentially lead to this character being good at just one copy, where you could potentially just utilize just the leader skill. We'll have to wait and see what the leader skill is going to do and how useful it would be just to have the leader skill and maybe like 1 or 2 of the passives. But obviously, the more copies you have of this character, the more stats they're going to have, the better survivability they're going to have on a defense team, and generally speaking, the better that defense team is going to be. Now, before we get on to the next part of the video, of course, Regina is an Ultra Token Wheel character, so we are going to be doing an Ultra Token giveaway. If you want your chance to win 10,000 Ultra Tokens, please leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and that will enter you into the giveaway. We'll do the giveaway draw in a future stream, and we'll probably do quite a few giveaway draws in a future stream because I need to catch up on some. But if you want to enter, that's how you can enter for your chance to win some tokens. Now, let's get on to the passives. And here are those mythic abilities. These are, of course, the passives of Regina. She is going to be a control role character, so she's going to have precision. She is laying down some control. She is doing minus attack. She's doing taunt so far. She is going to be doing other controls in this as well. The enemy resistance is going to be 40% lower against this fighter, and that is a flat reduction against their resists. Death sentence is the next one. When being attacked, 100% chance the attacker gets crosshairs for 3 turns. This is going to affect the characters that she taunts and anyone else that does any basic attacks or multi-hit signature moves or adrenaline rushes. Anything that deals damage will bypass this, so that won't be as much of a problem, but that is going to be an issue generally speaking. So you're not going to be able to cheese certain teams where you have like Zachary just picking up teammates. If they've got crosshairs, they're decapped if they are taken out. The next passive is called Old Guard. All teammates get reduced attack damage taken by 50%. This is a massive reduction, and attack-based damage is things like I said. Basic attacks is also going to be attack-based signature moves, so when it says attack an enemy, or multiple attacks where it attacks enemy multiple times, that's how it's going to work. It's not going to just work for Regina, it's also going to work for every single teammate on Regina's team, which is, like I say, going to be massively problematic. And the last passive is called Forced Normalcy. At the start of each wave and turn, if any enemy has the Daze status effect, 100% chance 2 random enemies get normalized for 2 turns. This is going to be massively problematic for an attack team. Specialist skills are extremely important when it comes to actually being able to, use the full potential of a character's kit. 2 random enemies is never going to target the leader because they can't get normalized, because they don't have a specialist skill. So it's generally going to land on your characters that can get normalized. They can resist it, but there isn't too much normalized resistance around. But you can potentially, resist the initial Daze status effect in the first place. The scaling of this could spiral really badly for a team if they start getting dazed and it just starts to fall apart for a team. I will say this has the potential to be cheesed and used on an attack team, because if you can daze enemies on attack, you could potentially then obviously just normalize half the defense straight away, and that would be really, really good. I think that is not going to take account when you apply daze. It's going to be at the beginning of your next turn effectively, so we'll test that out as well, as we can test her out on an attack team. So here we are attacking a team, as you can see, and we have obviously been dazed by the leader at the beginning of the wave. We have 3 of my characters getting dazed, and as you can see, we have Isabel being normalized / Abita. That's how it works at the beginning of the wave. If you have someone who can daze at the start of combat before the fight actually starts. 2-turn normalize as well by the looks of things. Pretty brutal. Let's see how it works when it comes to applying daze and see if that actually normalizes characters when you do the application. I don't think it's going to work that way though. Okay, so here we are attacking now with Regina on the team. We have someone who will be able to daze enemies. I've got quite an easy team to see if things are going to be applied because there are no buffs on the enemy team. I'm going to obviously daze enemies right now. And you can see the dazes came in, but there's no application of normalize at all. But if I start my next turn, so if I do some defense, I think I might take some damage here. We'll see what happens. Because those dazes are there, characters should be normalized at the start of the next turn. There we go. So you can see Akira's normalized. So is character in the bottom right hand corner in Mike. It does potentially look like only 2 characters can be normalized as long as there's 1 dazed enemy. It isn't going to be for every dazed enemy 2 characters are going to get normalized. So you can't get up to 4 enemies get normalized. That is something just to take note. But this could still be useful, because if I was to take out these characters now and they had very important specialist skills, then obviously, something like Halo 2, something like that, characters that would revive back, they're not going to revive back. The dazes will still be on other enemies, and in the next turn, it will obviously normalize the leftover specialists that are going to still be in the team. Now, you might have also noticed at the end, there was crosshairs coming in against quite a lot of the characters that were attacking Regina. That is going to be very problematic for any team, but potentially, like I said, she could have some very niche usability on an attack team just because of that. Applying crosshairs and potentially doing normalize on dazed enemies, you have to have someone who can consistently put dazes down on enemies. Those are a little less rare than they used to, but that is just something to note. If we look at the upgrades here, at grade 1, we're going to see the first part of Death Sentence. When being attacked, 50% chance the attacker gets crosshairs for 3 turns. At grade 2, she gets the first half of precision. Enemy resistance is 20% lower against this fighter. At grade 3, when being attacked, 50% chance the attacker gets crosshairs for 3 turns. At grade 4, all teammates get reduced attack damage by 20%. And then at grade 5, she'll get the first half of Forced Normalcy at the start of each wave and turn if any enemy has the Daze status effect. 50% chance 2 random enemies get normalized for 2 turns. Like I said, the max potential for this is 2 normalizes. If the entire team is dazed, it will only take it into account that it's going to proc once. This is just one thing to note here. Moving on to the limit breaks, you can see the second half of Precision comes in at limit break 1. Enemy resistances are a further 20% lower against this fighter, making it 40% total. At limit break 2, the second half of Old Guard comes in. All teammates get reduced attack damage taken by 30%, making it 50% total. And at limit break 3, Forced Normalcy 2 comes in, making a 100% chance 2 random enemies get normalized for 2 turns if any of the enemies have days at the start of the wave or turn. You did see it worked with the leader skill with Alpha, so anyone who can do it pre-fight like that could potentially do this and apply this. This can obviously include attack teams. So on attack, I think the only person who can do that is Laura, where she will actually normalize support role characters. Other than that, it's based on application. But there could be, like I said, very small cheese on attack, definitely usable on defense. The passives are very nice when it comes to this sort of thing. Normalize is problematic for anyone, attack or defense. It generally is going to just reduce your survivability on defense teams and reduce your damage potential on attack teams. It's pretty much as simple as that. Now, of course, Regina is going to be a leader, and this is her leader skill. All teammates get 40% HP and defense with an additional 10% HP for medic role and 10% defense for tank role teammates. 3 random control role enemies get days for 2 turns at the start of each wave. So obviously there's 2 halves to this leader skill. The first part is the old school 40% defense, 40% HP, which we kind of remember from the 6-star and S-class eras, and the additional 10% boost based on the role, whether they're medic or tank. This is going to be the other boost that actually is going to come in. I didn't actually realize this was going to come in on the leader skill, so it isn't just the adrenaline rush. It does seem like medics and tank role characters will get a nice little boost. Someone like Nor, who's a medic, could work quite well on a Regina's team because she's going to get massive amounts of bonus HP, but now she's going to take reduced incoming attack damage because of Regina's passive to reduce that damage. This is not trait based, so she is a rainbow lead, so she is going to have any character that can be used on a team with her, but it could be good to use medics or tanks. Now the second part and the last part and the most important part, I guess, 3 random control role enemies getting dazed for 2 turns at the start of each wave potentially means someone like Danny, Eva and Ghost are going to be dazed for their first 2 turns, and that means they can't use their heavy nukes early on in the fight, and obviously that means they are going to potentially be kind of useless early on in the fight, and then with the daze comes normalize as well. So that is going to be what Regina is going to bring to the table. Her leader skill will work exactly the same as Alpha's when it comes to proccing her passive there. And this is going to be a bit of a nullifier for control role enemies. And that includes, like I say, Danny and Eva and Ghost. You will rely on more deal damage based characters, it does look like, and characters that are not control. And that'll be a problem for dealing a lot of damage, honestly, because there aren't too many deal damage based characters out there at the moment. I think maybe like Deputy Carl is the one I can remember that's the most recent that is actually like reasonably powerful hitting. Other than that, most characters are attack based, and the most recent damage dealers are also control role, so there's a problem there. Now, Regina does not have an attached weapon, but thankfully there are a lot of decent defense pistols out there when it comes to alert weapons. That isn't going to be too much of a problem. Alert trait, we've been given a lot of weapons in the past, and honestly, currently, they are pretty top tier, giving up to 40-50% in both the stats that she's going to require, plus things like stun on defense, absolute defense, so on and so forth. Big boost in the last slot as well, potentially. Definitely quite a vast amount of options that she can hold in her hands. So this was a first look at Gold Mythic Regina, and she does look pretty good for a defense team. Maybe some niche usage on attack, like I said, but it looks like she's going to potentially be nullifying characters with the control role. Danny and Eva and Ghost heavily targeted with that, no doubt. Those are some of the primary damage dealers at the moment. You're going to have to think of different ways to attack the teams with Regina on as a defense lead. There are obviously other options, deal damage over time, but she can obviously team up with other characters that can make them less of an issue too. Let me know your thoughts on Regina in the comments down below. Best of luck if you enter the giveaway. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.